Section 4. You will hear a lecture given by a professor about the behavioral traits of primates. First, you have some time to read through questions 13 to 17. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 13 to 17.
Hello, everyone. Last class, we learned a bit about the evolution of the gorilla over time. For today's talk, I'll focus on other primates by looking at the behavioral traits of several individual species. First, let's look at the behavior of different primate species in terms of food availability. Now, all primates eat both insects and plants, but some species have developed a strong preference for fruits and leaves. The chimpanzees of the Congo rainforest, for example, have an abundance of fruits and leaves to choose from. These primates are interesting because they use rocks as tools to crack open nuts. Then, they gather together in their nesting areas after collecting food. In contrast, baboons live in the savanna or grassy flatlands, where fruits and other edible plants are rare. To compensate for a lack of edible plants, baboons often use long blades of grass to catch ants as a food source. So, climate can significantly affect the behavior of primates. The orangutans of Sumatra, for example, spend long days gathering food in the jungle. And after that, they spend nights cooling off, staying away from predators, and sleeping in the branches of trees. The bonobos of Central Africa also have to cope with the weather and endure cool nights. One way they do this is by sleeping together in nests to help keep one another warm. This is also reason why they're known for being markedly social, along with their habit of helping one another out with the care of infants. Furthermore, squirrel monkeys are also known to use jungle canopy as shade when it's too hot to forage. The macaques of Japan and primates living in the mountains of North Africa, on the other hand, have the opposite problem to contend with. Fiercely cold winters mean they must regulate their metabolisms or gather together in hot springs for warmth. So, as you can see, there is much diversity among primate species in terms of behavioral traits. However, there can be overlap as well, such as with their mating rituals, which we will look at in a moment. But before I move on to that topic, I'll take any questions you might have.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers. Hacker's Test.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between two students about a biology class field trip. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
So, was there anything that stood out to you about the field trip to the Wharton Agricultural Research Centre? The introduction gave a good overall explanation of the facility and its purpose.
Yes, I found that to be quite fascinating, especially the experiments they are conducting. You know, the work that the employee mentioned they're doing on natural pesticides or plants that have been modified to be resistant to insect infestation. Those would be easy topics to research. But how about the talk given by the director of research? There was so much information that I felt overwhelmed. It was just too much to digest all at once.
Yes, that was way too complicated. I'm sure there was a lot of helpful information in her talk, but I couldn't understand much of it. She tended to use a lot of technical language, which I found really difficult to follow.
I agree, but fortunately I recorded it, so we can listen to it later and just look up anything we don't understand. The centre was actually much larger than I imagined it would be. It was huge, And the other scientists who led our tour of the laboratories was very nice.
For sure. I thought that area was especially impressive. The technology behind the centre's studies seems very advanced. Honestly, I had no idea agricultural research involves so much advanced machinery and equipment. And it was great that we learned exactly how the equipment is used.
I know what you mean. I was quite surprised at the precision of the equipment. I don't know about you, but I really liked walking through the outdoor areas where they were growing plant specimens for their experiments. I can't believe how many plants they had.
Oh, there must have been thousands. I was really interested in the section on ancient plants. Remember? Where they were cultivating plant species that had been germinated from seeds found at archaeological sites.
Yes, the area where seeds from ancient food plants were growing. The pumpkins, potatoes and carrots all looked so different from what we're accustomed to eating today. And the ancient corn plants they were growing were very small compared to what we're normally used to.
Even the ancient grains looked very different. I hardly recognised the wheat and barley plants. Unless the guide had told us, I wouldn't have known what they were.
Yes, that was a really fascinating aspect of the field trip for me too. I wish we could have spent more time there.
I feel the same way. What did you think of the talk by the plant genetics researcher? She seemed to really know what she was talking about.
Honestly, I thought it was a bit disorganized. She could have explained things more clearly. But it wasn't as bad as that so-called discussion at the end of the field trip. I don't know about you, but I was very disappointed.
Oh, I know. They told us we'd have a chance to ask questions. But that person just gave a couple of closing remarks, and that was it. I'm sure we all had some questions. I know I did.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you can read through questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
So, we have to choose a topic discussed during the field trip to use during our presentation. What about focusing on ancient food plants? It seems we were both interested in it as a topic, and there was quite a bit of research data shared about it.
Sure, I'm fine with that. But there was such a vast variety of plants. Even some fruit trees. We should probably narrow down our focus. We only have a limited amount of time for the presentation. Maybe we need to just choose one plant variety.
Well, let's focus specifically on ancient grains. What do you think?
OK, yeah. I took quite a few notes while the guide was explaining them. There aren't just physical differences between ancient grains and contemporary ones, but differences in their resistance to pests as well.
Well, we will definitely want to include information on that. And maybe we could get our hands on some plant samples to show the class, just so they can physically see how grains have changed since ancient times.
Wouldn't it be easier just to find some images online? I think we'll be able to use the projection system for our presentation. It would save us the time it would take to ask the centre if we could get a plant sample.
That's true. Let's go ahead with your idea. Oh, and I also remember that the guide explained that the ancient grains are a bit more difficult to cultivate and grow than current grain plants, which have been significantly modified. Maybe we can give some details on that aspect.
I don't know if we should mention that. I think we are going to find enough information to share with the class with what we've selected already.
True enough. OK, so maybe we should go through our notes and recordings at this point and find information that will be pertinent to our presentation.
Sure. That sounds like a good plan. We can find some pictures once we have sorted through our data.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.